Well, of course, as part of the bad weather, particularly in Cape Town, thousands of people have been displaced. They're now left homeless. Already, the city of Cape Town has an accommodation problem. Stephen Underwood is from U-Turn. They work with people who are living homeless in Cape Town. Stephen, good afternoon to you. We know there's a large number of people who are living already without shelter in Cape Town. Now we have more people without shelter because of the flooding. It's cold, it's wet. How difficult is the situation for them?
Hi, Stephen. Yeah, it's extremely difficult. I mean, for folk living on the street, they already have a tough enough life as it is. And when the rains come down and the cold comes down like this, it's really makes life extremely difficult for folk living on the street there. And especially in a sector where resources are so constrained. So we have more than 14,000 people living on the streets in Cape Town and let's say maximum 3,000 to 3,500 shelter beds. So you can see with bad weather and people being displaced, it just exacerbates an already difficult problem.
What do people do? I mean, they do things that maybe make them vulnerable. They look for a small tunnel. They look for any kind of corner where it'll be dry.
Absolutely. The rain drives folk to just get out of that wet. So they'll be sleeping in the doorways of businesses, which obviously puts them at security risk. They'll be sleeping under bridges, maybe near the side of the road. We've had clients who've even camped down near the freeway in the past, which is obviously very dangerous with the cars going past. So, yeah, folk, they go all over the place trying to just get out of the torrential rain. And yes, it does put their personal safety at risk, either because of those elements or, yeah, they incur security difficulties when they move into private areas.
Are there some people who are more vulnerable than others? Maybe some younger people, maybe people under the age of 18 in particular. Sometimes they have nowhere else to go. Sometimes there's a substance issue. Sometimes their families just kick them out. It's very difficult for younger people.
Indeed, I think, and we see youth unemployment in South Africa at such a high level. Yeah, the youth are definitely disproportionately affected by homelessness. I think in weather conditions like this, it's folk who have mobility issues who really struggle the most. A lot of people living on the streets do have physical disabilities, loss of limbs or walking difficulties, walking with crutches, and obviously having to move, having to find dry sleeping spaces is that much harder for folk in that type of situation.
What kind of help works for people in that situation? I mean, what do they really need? And in many cases, people will immediately look for a warm jacket, some food for the night. That's the short term. The longer term, people need more help than that.
Yeah, so U-Turn, we take a people-first approach. So we don't look at the need first, we look at the person first. And every person is unique and different. We do provide basic support at our homeless support centers, and that's an incentive for homeless clients to come in and receive meals, warm clothing, a bed where we have available, we're generally full, and decent ablutions, which of course is absolutely critical in this winter period. And that helps us to then start a relationship with people living on the street, because you've got to address those traumas that caused a person to land up on the street in the first place before you can actually start to assist to reintegrate them back into society. But it's not a quick fix by any means. It's most of our clients take approximately 2 years on the journey out of homelessness. And so, yes, it is something to keep a long-term mindset. But certainly when we have bad weather like this, it reaches almost crisis proportion. And so even welfare at that stage is very much necessary. U-Turn are doing quite a big winter drive just because of the huge influx of clients that we get at this time of year. So if anyone wants to support, they can jump on our website, which is homeless.org.za. But yeah, it's a long journey to get people off the street. And yeah, this bad weather and this type of situation causes it to be quite important.
I mean, for some people, I would imagine a warm meal makes a huge difference. You have now thousands of people joining those who are already homeless, thousands of people who've arrived in the Cape Town area just desperate for any kind of accommodation. There isn't any. They build their own. It's now been destroyed. So I would imagine, I mean, sometimes they're called soup kitchens, but all of those feeding places where someone could get some food, get a warm meal, all of them will be completely overwhelmed.
Absolutely, because that provides a warm meal, as you say, which makes a big difference, but it also provides legitimacy, which is something that people living on the street really struggle with. They get pushed from pillar to post. They've got nowhere to go where they feel legitimate and belong. So where they come into a homeless support center like we run at U-Turn, they can not only get a meal, but they will be there without being chased away. They'll be warmly embraced. They'll have someone listen to them, talk to them, and they get a feeling of belonging. And I think that feeling of belonging is often what keeps folk living on the street. They feel that that's where they belong. But we're desperate to try and motivate our clients to understand that they don't belong on the street. They belong reintegrated back in society. And that's why we do a lot of work working with our clients, like I say, a people-first approach, to help them to realize they do belong in mainstream society. They just need to work on personal development and walk a journey and have someone believe in them and invest in them. So at our homeless support centers, I think that's what really makes a difference. It's the love and support and, yeah, the legitimacy that they provide, where people living on the street can come and feel, okay, I'm not going to be chased away. I'm not going to be harassed by security or residents who don't want me here, or businesses who don't like the look of me. That's where they can be themselves, and that's where we can connect with them and then start that journey off the street.
The city of Cape Town, and there's been various court cases about this, there were people living in public areas. Eventually, the city of Cape Town, as I understand it, finally won a court action to allow them to be evicted. The city said that it had created shelters. You started this conversation by suggesting, in fact, that there just wasn't enough sort of shelter for homeless people available. Is that a major problem? I mean, could the city provide more? It is expensive.
It is expensive, and the city have been working hard to create more shelter beds. It's not something you can just wave a magic wand and create them. There's public participation. There's you need buildings, you need resources, and the city are working hard. I do applaud their efforts, but the number of people coming onto the street exceeds the number of shelter beds that we're able to create because of the economic circumstances in South Africa. Already we had a significant number of people living on the street before COVID. And COVID has just made the problem that much worse. So I think that in all areas, in policy, in resources, in systems, we are playing more of catch up and being more reactive than we are being proactive. So yeah, I definitely applaud the city in terms of creating more shelter beds, but I think more does need to be done to really address the problem. And it's as I said, the situation becomes more urgent when we see weather conditions like this. It's really appalling to be having to live on the streets in such conditions.
Stephen Underwood, thank you from U-Turn. Do appreciate the time.